evening, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. I'm Lisa Friend, and I'm delighted to be your host this evening as we explore the golden city of Prague. Now, please allow me the pleasure to introduce our guest for the evening, Jana Hronková. Jana, welcome.
Thank you very much. Děkuji, Lisa. Ahoy, ahoy to everybody from Prague.
Ahoy, that means hello?
Yes, for sure. Ahoy, ahoy.
So we will learn more. I know that you promised to do a language lesson for us later in the show. So before we begin, a little bit about you. I'm betting that you were born and bred in Prague. Is that true?
I was born a little bit outside of Prague in Moravia, but we moved to Prague when I was only 3 years old. So I can say that I'm a true Prague person for sure.
And so what do you do with your time? I know you guide tours for Rick Steves and
I also teach at a local grammar school in my neighborhood. And well, we have 3 kids, so that's another job for me.
Okay, so are you ready to get started?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, let's move to Prague.
So before we begin, we have a new little feature, an animation of a very happy stick figure in Prague. So I'm happy to share that with you. And he's going to do kind of the opposite of the order that we're going tonight. So.
Prague, which escaped the bombs of last century's wars, is one of Europe's best-preserved cities. It's nicknamed the Golden City of 100 Spires. And beyond its striking facades, it's an accessible city with a story to tell and plenty to experience.
We'll explore Prague, filled with exuberant architecture, and slinky with sumptuous Art Nouveau. With music spilling into the streets, and colorful pubs serving up some of the best beer anywhere, it's a city thriving with visitors. We'll take in the sights, ranging from Europe's most evocative Jewish quarter to Prague's in-love-with-life Charles Bridge. Buried in the center of Europe is the Czech Republic and its capital and dominant city, Prague. Prague, straddling the Vltava River, is easy on foot, with highlights like Wenceslas Square, the Old Town Square, Charles Bridge, and the Cathedral up in the castle, all within about an hour's walk.
The 14th century was Prague's golden age. The Holy Roman Emperor ruled from here. Back then, this was one of Europe's largest and most highly cultured cities.
Until about 1800, Prague was 4 separate and fortified towns. The Castle town, for 1,000 years the home of the Czech ruler. Below that, the Little Town, where nobles would live to be close to the king. The Old Town with its magnificent market square, and the New Town, with the grand Wenceslas Square providing a stage for this country's tumultuous 20th century history. Prague's 4 gloomy decades of communist control feels like a distant memory as the city is bursting with entrepreneurial energy. Everything from the buildings like the Dancing House, nicknamed Fred and Ginger, to the vibrant crowds in the streets, seem to celebrate Czech freedom. Charles Bridge was commissioned in the 14th century by the Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV. It offers one of the most pleasant strolls in Europe. This bridge is part of the historic coronation route called the Royal Way. Processions ended above at the cathedral where the king was crowned. Along the way, they passed through the town center, crossing this delightful bridge. Today, the most commercial stretch of the Royal Way is a shopping gauntlet lined with Prague's most playful diversions. Like main drags throughout Europe, this walk mesmerizes visitors. Use it as a spine, but make a point to venture beyond. Prague is flourishing with inviting lanes and vibrant markets. Today, as they have since medieval times, Prague's farmers markets keep both hungry locals and visitors well fed.
Jana, I have a couple questions for you while we're paused. First of all, have you ever seen the Charles Bridge without people on it?
That's a good question, Lisa. Well, hardly, because the Charles Bridge is always very busy. But if you are a night owl or early bird and you wake up early in the morning, like I did last week, and I have a proof of that. Thank you very much, Lisa, for sharing the picture. So this is Prague last week at 6:30 in the morning. It was just magical. Almost nobody on the bridge. So definitely there are some parts of the day where you can find the bridge completely empty. So this is 6:30 in the morning.
Is there a best time of year to go to Prague?
Well, my answer would be any time really of the year. Because if you come during the freezing winter, then you can always enjoy the beautiful, for example, Christmas markets and have a mulled wine. Or if you come during the summer hot days, you can enjoy the gelato and hide somewhere inside of the beautiful museums really and enjoy the architecture. So it's hard to say, but really any time of the year is the best.
So you said enjoying something. I went to a little place here in Seattle called the Little Prague Bakery, and I got something to nosh on. So I got an apricot kolach and a savory puff with meat and cheese. And I don't know the name of it because it was just called the savory puff with ham and cheese. Do you know what this would be called in Prague for our viewers?
Well, normally over here, we would make it a little bit longer, kind of like the sour or salty strudel version, really. So yeah, but oh, good. Yeah, wonderful. Looks really great. But I have something as well with me. Of course, I had to bring kolach as well. So I actually brought these 3 different fillings with plums and cheese and also poppy seeds, because we love poppy seeds over here in the Czech Republic. So I also brought these little rolls that we make over here. And as you could see, they are completely filled up with poppy seeds.
Wow. Do you have anything to wash that all down with?
Well, I know, Lisa, that usually during the shows, most of you enjoy the wine. But over here in the Czech Republic, we are always saying that the best wine is the beer, of course. So I was actually counting on you, Lisa. I hope you have the Czech beer with you.
Well, since it's the only word I know besides ahoy in Czech, I have a pivo.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for supporting me in that. But since it's 3 a.m. for me, so it's a little bit too late, or better to say maybe too early for a mug of beer. So actually I made a nice cup of tea for myself. Actually, this is a linden tree or linden tea because my mom, she's always picking the flowers of the blossoming linden tree, because this is like a national Czech tree. And then we always dry the flowers and we have our herbal healthy tea ready for the whole winter. So I made a cup of linden tea for me for today.
That's a beautiful cup. Would you hold that closer to the camera, please?
Oh, yeah. This is another traditional Czech thing. This is we call it onion porcelain, because some of the shapes before looked like an onion. So this is a nice traditional Czech porcelain.
So since I only know how to say ahoy and pivo, as a tourist, am I going to be able to get around in Prague okay? And what should I know how to say to be polite?
And yeah, well, Prague is a very touristy city, as we know, but you can always use your English. But on the other hand, it's always nice to learn a few local words, because I'm always saying that starting the conversation with the local language. It can open many doors, many hearts, and I guess trigger many interesting conversations that you will remember for the rest of your life when you return back home. But since you asked for it and you are ready for a language lesson, so I prepared a few Czech words.
Okay, I'm ready.
First of all, of course, we have to start with the Czech word that all of you know, because we are using ahoj, like the sailors. For more than 100 years, actually, we use it. We don't know exactly how the sailors' greeting got to our country, but this is for us now the informal hello and goodbye as well. So there you go. Already you speak Czech. Ahoj.
Ahoy.
The second word would be the Czech version of please, which we say prosím. Prosím.
Prosím.
Oh, very well. And for thank you in Czech language, we would say děkuji. Děkuji.
Děkuji.
Wonderful. Yeah. Great.
Děkuji.
And finally, of course, since you have your beer, Lisa, so you have to know how to say properly cheers. So na zdraví. Na zdraví.
Na zdraví.
Na zdraví.
Okay.
So there you are, ready to come to Prague again.
All right, then let's go on with the show.
Prague's Old Town Square, once just another farmer's market, is now the heart of the city. But today, the commerce is clearly tourism. The fanciful Gothic teen church soars over everything, as if to remind tourists that lots of religious history took place right here. Back in the 15th century, when some Christians were beginning to struggle against Roman Catholic dominance, this was Prague's leading Hussite church. Hussites were followers of Jan Hus, whose statue graces the square. He was a local preacher who got in trouble with the Vatican 100 years before Martin Luther and the Reformation. The chalice is a symbol of Hus and his followers who believed everyone, not just priests, should be able to partake in the Eucharist, or Holy Communion. These days, huge crowds gather at the 15th century astronomical clock here on the Old Town Square. The dials seem to tell you everything you could possibly want to know. It tells the phases of the moon, sunset, current sign of the zodiac, each day's special saint, and somehow it even tells the time. And of course, 500 years ago, everything revolved around the earth. At the top of the hour, Death tips his hourglass and pulls the cord. The windows open as the 12 apostles parade by, acknowledging the gang of onlookers. The rooster crows. And finally, the bell rings. But my favorite part of the show is watching the crowd gawk.
Prague has long been a mecca for musicians. Mozart loved the place. His opera, Don Giovanni, debuted just around the corner. Anton Dvorak lived and composed right here. And today, that enthusiasm for music lives on.
Box offices around town give you all the options: theater, opera, jazz, and classical. Tickets are cheap, about half what you'd pay in Vienna. Racks of flyers show what's on. And with this wall of photos, you can choose just the right venue.
Jana, do you have a favorite venue?
Oh, for sure. Well, we love music. There is an old Czech saying that every Czech is a musician. And it's almost like that till today, because actually we even have a public art schools for our kids. So they have like afternoon lessons or classes of acting, drawing, or music when they learn to play some instrument. And really like about 40–45% of Czech kids, they would really attend and learn to play at least one instrument, like my kids do as well. So we really love music over here. And in Prague, we have so many beautiful churches, as some of you know, those who've been to Prague already. And we have a lot of concerts either inside of the churches, like starting with the small ones, little church of St. Martin in the Wall, little Gothic church, moving to the beautiful, richly decorated Baroque church of St. Nicholas, for example, directly on the Old Town Square. We also have many beautifully decorated concert halls. I really like the Municipal House, which is really like the parallel of the Art Nouveau style. So a lot of concerts going on over there as well. So there are many, many options, and just the beautiful architecture that you see around you is amazing. And you can enjoy the architecture and you can enjoy the wonderful music over here.
So for the viewers, we've put Jana's 4 favorite music venues in the chat feature for you, so you can get that information.
There's chamber music all over town. We're enjoying a string quartet. It's Vivaldi in the Chapel of Mirrors. Enjoying Baroque music in a Baroque space like this, the music takes on a delightful dimension. Prague Castle, towering above the town, dominates the west side of the Vltava River, also known as the Moldau. It's a complex of churches and palaces encircled by mighty walls. For 1,000 years, Prague has been ruled from here. Even today, the Czech president works within its gates. The changing of the guards adds a dose of formality. And for some entertaining informality, a quartet called the Prague Castle Orchestra is playing just outside. Their forte, songs that resonate with the Czech people. I'm meeting another friend, Hansa Vihan, who helps me guide our tours and research guidebooks. Hansa's joining us for a sweep through Prague history.
Before we continue on, I just wanted to say that Rick is saying, here's my friend Hansa, but what he's not saying is that these 4 Prague Castle Orchestra gentlemen are also his friends, and he has hired them to come to the US and play before. So they're really highly recommended by Rick.
This piece just brings out emotions, doesn't it?
Yeah, the song is very important to the Czech people. It's the Moldau, or Vltava, by Smetana.
So that's the river here.
It's named after the river. It's like the blood of the Czech people. And wherever you go in the world, you can just think of this tune, and it's like being back home.
Is that true, Jana? If you heard this anywhere in the world, would it make you think of home?
Oh, definitely. I would have tears in my eyes, definitely. Yeah, this is the most beautiful song for us, for sure.
So I remember that January when you came with the tour member reunion and with the simultaneous tour guide summit, and Jana was here and Rick had hired the Prague Castle Orchestra to come. And it was just as if Jana had brought her own private orchestra with her wherever she went. And every time she walked in and out of the building and they were playing, I could see how happy she was. And it's such a nice memory for me. Thank you. Thank you, Jana.
Well, it was great. I still remember that year when they were there, really.
The castle complex is complex and vast as well, with noble palaces, ancient churches, and grand banqueting halls. While you could easily spend all day within its walls, the one essential stop is St. Vitus Cathedral. The church is Gothic, started in the 1300s, but not finished for centuries. Inside, the clean, soaring lines and vast windows create a space that's quintessentially Gothic, full of light and uplifting. Visitors are dwarfed by the scale and wowed by the beauty. A stunning Art Nouveau window created by Alphonse Mucha in 1931 graces the nave. But the importance of the cathedral, both religious and cultural, is best felt in its intimate and sumptuously decorated Wenceslas chapel.
This place feels very sacred.
Yeah, a church in this place has been the holiest place in the country for 1100 years. Saint Wenceslas is buried here.
So that's Wenceslas's tomb.
Yeah, he's the first Slavic saint. So at a time when you had all these French and Italian saints, this was the first Slav to attain sainthood, and he's the patron of the Czech people. And the kings have been coronated here for those 1100 years, and they would always be just lent the crown of Saint Wenceslas, who otherwise rules eternally up in heaven.
Jana, what does that mean? Hausa says you're lent the crown. What does that mean exactly?
To lend the crown, because the crown is named after Saint Wenceslas that you all know from the Christmas carol, our good King Wenceslas. But actually, the crown was made by King Charles IV, another very important figure and ruler for us, who built the cathedral in which we are right now. He built the Chalice Bridge, founded the Chalice University. So in the middle of the 14th century, he paid and made this crown for Saint Wenceslas. So it never really belonged to the king, because it belonged to the Czechs, to all the people. So the Saint Wenceslas crown is like very important symbol of our statehood. A symbol of our independence as an independent Czech kingdom among all the other European kingdoms and countries. And we keep the crown together with the coronation jewels inside of the cathedral, like above the grave of Saint Wenceslas, and we really rarely show it to the public, only on a very unique occasions. So these days it is usually when the new president is elected, which happens every 5th year. And I was so privileged that I was able, back in 2013, actually, I was able to see the crown, the real one, and I actually didn't have to stay in the line. Usually people are lining up for hours to see the real crown. But thanks to my dear friend, I was able to come early in the morning again, like on the bridge. And I was able to see the crown really for real. So that was unbelievable for me. So yes, a symbol of our independence as a independent kingdom back in those days.
Thank you for sharing that memory with us.
Just up the hill, the Strahov Monastery overlooks the Prague Castle and the rest of the city. The monastery was a center of learning. As the Age of Enlightenment swept into Prague in the 18th century, it brought with it an enthusiasm for the study of natural sciences. Cases highlight oddities from around the globe and wonders of the day. Could this be a baby dodo bird?
Jana, I want to know, could this be a baby dodo bird? I've always wondered.
How funny, isn't it, Lisa? Yes, the extinct dodo bird here in Prague, inside of the monastery. Well, actually, we call this creature. This is our dráček, like a little dragon. But this is like a cabinet of curiosities, how we call it, is a collection dating back to 18th century. And we have to remember that back in those days, people couldn't travel like we do in these days. So only those privileged ones who had the money, they could travel and see the amazing and mystical places and mystical animals. And they were bringing those souvenirs, if I can call it like that, back home and showing it to the public that couldn't travel. Well, and as you can imagine, sometimes they were even creating some new species, actually. So this is not a real dodo, but at least it's our little dragon, dráček.
So if it's not a real dodo bird, and I'm super bummed out right now, what is it? What is it made of? Wood and paper mache, or?
Yeah, it's covered with like a sliced layers of ray skin, like this type of a fish. So this is
like a stingray or a manta ray?
Covering. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clearing that up.
The monastery is most noted for its library. Libraries were the Google of the day. It's hard to overestimate the importance of these books back then. The halls were decorated with paintings that celebrated philosophy, theology, and the quest for knowledge. Knowledge is power, and in Europe until modern times, the church was the keeper of knowledge. This gave the church extraordinary power. For example, some of these books dealt with particularly challenging ideas. The locked case above the door was for libri prohibiti, the prohibited books.
Only the abbot had the key, and to read these books, like the works of Copernicus and Jan Hus, you had to get his permission. As the Age of Enlightenment took hold in Europe, the church struggled to maintain its control of knowledge.
Pondering these treasured books from our information age perspective, I'm reminded both how abundant information is today and of the importance of free access. Prague is well served by its tram system. You can tame any big city by taking advantage of its public transportation. Trams slither up and down the cobbled streets every few minutes. The service is so good and cheap, many locals never get around to learning to drive. We're heading across town to the top of Wenceslas Square. Saint Wenceslas, commemorated by this statue, is the good king of Christmas Carol fame. The statue is a popular meeting point. Locals say, "I'll see you under the horse's tail." The good king was actually an exceptionally educated and highly cultured 10th century Czech duke. Stories of his enlightened reign caused Europeans to see Czechs as civilized rather than barbarian. To this day, Wenceslas is a symbol of Czech nationalism. Wenceslas Square is the main square of the country and the natural assembly point when the Czech people need to raise their collective voice for change. In the 19th century, the age of divine kings and ruling families was coming to an end. Here, as in much of Europe, nationalism was on the rise. By the end of World War I, the Habsburgs were history, and the birth of an independent Czechoslovakia was celebrated on this square. But independence lasted barely 20 years. In 1939, the Nazis marched in. While Prague escaped the bombs of World War II, it couldn't avoid the communists who came next and stayed for 40 years. But with this square as the stage, people power ultimately prevailed.
In the 20th century, my family lived history on this square. In 1918, my grandma watched the Habsburg Eagles being pulled down from the buildings. In 1939, my aunt saw the Nazis pulling in. In 1968, My dad stood here with his bare hands against the Soviet tanks. And in 1989, was my generation's turn.
So you were here. Tell me what happened.
In November '89, a student march headed for this square kicked off 2 weeks of demonstrations. For 14 nights, this square filled with 300,000 people.
Each night, 300,000 people here.
And on the last night, Václav Havel, the playwright, who would become our next president, announced from that balcony the resignation of the communist government.
Wow.
Suddenly, we were free.
And without a shot, the communist era had ended for the Czech people.
Jana, we were talking about this earlier, and I thought it was important for you to be able to share your history too. Did you live through some of this, and what does it mean to you today?
Well, yes, I was 12 years old actually, Lisa, when we had the Velvet Revolution. So I really spent almost like my whole childhood during the communism. But I'm always saying that I was luckily born in the right time, because when finally I was ending my grammar school and going to the secondary school, how we call it, the situation changed, and the Velvet Revolution happened, and we had democracy. And for me personally, it's since I have 3 kids, it's very important really to teach the kids as well about the history, really, because like imagine what my parents, the generation of my parents and my parents-in-law went through, really making such a difficult decisions under the circumstances, living during the communistic regime. And luckily I don't have to do that, really. We have democracy. And I would say for me personally, the one of the most important, if I can use the word mission as a parent, really, to raise active citizens, really, people who, when they will be adults, will be smart, will use their critical thinking. And that's why I always bring my kids on the 17th of November to the National Street. You can see the pictures from that particular day, because we always have a big celebrations and like events to remember the Velvet Revolution from 1989. So that's why I always take our kids over there and teach them about how it was before, and how lucky we are that right now we are able to live in democracy, because as we know, all around the world, democracy is very fragile, and we couldn't take it for granted. And the children are our future, so they have to know really how it was before.
Jana, what's the day again in November if people were traveling in that area and wanted to see the celebrations?
Yeah, it's 17th of November. 17th of November. That's when the students gathered and were brutally beaten up by the police on this particular spot on the national street. So that's why we have the memorial over there.
Thank you. There were some of your tour members in the Q&A, and they were saying how powerful your speech was there. So I'm glad that you're sharing this information with us.
Yeah, I'm you know, Lisa, I'm so happy that I can share it. You know, after all those years, like I was mentioning, when I grew up during the communism, and now, yes, it really happened, and we can share it and learn from all of that. So I'm very happy to share it as well.
Thank you. Let's go on with the show.
Back to the video.
And today, a big part of that newly won freedom is the freedom to enjoy what many consider Europe's best beer. Prague's beer halls, both big and small, are an integral part of the city and its social scene. Over the generations, beer has evolved from a heavy, almost liquid bread beverage to a lighter, more refreshing Pilsner or lager. It seems Czechs perfected lager, and they drink it with a strong sense of ownership. And in a place like this, even for a tourist, good conversation and quick friendships go hand in hand, especially with your second half liter.
Okay, Jana, it's time for us to talk about some beer. And you sent us some pictures today, so let me pull those up because pivo, I love Czech beer, maybe because it's lighter, but I enjoy it very much. So can you talk to us about the beer culture in Prague and what is the best beer in Prague? Somebody was already asking. I'm just gonna drink my beer.
Yeah. I'm very happy to talk about it. Of course, we couldn't leave the beer out of any conversation if we talk about the Czech Republic, since we still keep the first position in a consumption of beer worldwide. And well, the Pilsner Urquell for sure is the type of the beer that most of you would know. So here Lisa is sharing the picture how we actually could serve the Pilsner. Because starting from the right-hand side, you could see the hladinka, how we would call it. That's the real beer, proper half-liter beer. And as you can see, and I guess many of you even tasted when you were in Prague, we like our beers with a proper head, how we would call it, or beer foam. The middle one, we call it Schnitt. That's from a German word meaning like cut, a cut, because you should never order a small beer. If you really want to drink it a proper Czech way, never order a small beer. Real beer for real men.
Okay.
But this is kind of like the way for some of you who would like a little bit smaller beer, this Schnitt. It comes in a regular half-liter mug, but as you could see, it's like cut. So there is more beer foam on the top. Usually it was that they were drinking it when they started a new barrel. So they just wanted to taste it if it's good and fresh. So that might be an option for kind of like a small beer, this Schnitt. And the final one, mlíko, meaning milk. You could see almost the whole mug is full of the foam. So this was usually this is usually like the final beer to close down the night, really. It's more like a creamy, not that bitter. So final beer at the end of the night. And just for those of you, because we also have the dark beer, not only the light beer, but also dark beer, which is a bit sweeter. But you can mix it and have this řezané pivo, how we call it, like half and half dark and half light, and you can nicely see it on this picture as well.
So you would order that just for the flavor, not because you want your beer to be too big or too little at this point, just because you want to try the taste of it.
Yeah. So it's not that bitter, it's not that sweet. You mix both of them, and the taste is slightly different. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Prague's skyline of red roofs and towering spires can hide the fact that the city is home to one of the oldest Jewish communities in Europe.
Dispersed by the Romans 2,000 years ago, Jews and their culture survived in enclaves throughout the Western world. Jewish traders settled here in Prague in the 10th century.
In the 13th century, they built this synagogue, now the oldest in Central Europe. Stepping into this venerable place of worship and marveling at how this could have survived the tumult of the ages, we feel 8 centuries of devotion. The old cemetery reminds visitors that this Jewish community was one of Europe's largest. With limited space and tens of thousands of graves, tombs were piled atop each other, many layers high. The Jewish word for cemetery means house of life. Like Christians, Jews believe that death is the gateway into the next world. A walk through here affords a contemplative moment in a serene setting. About 100 years ago, Prague's ramshackle ghetto was torn down and rebuilt as the attractive neighborhood we see today. Fine, mostly Art Nouveau buildings. The few surviving historic buildings are thought-provoking and open to visitors.
I just wanted to stop for a minute, Jana, because for years when I was talking to people who were visiting Prague, I would suggest, based on conversations with you and Kasia and Hansa, that if you were going to hire a private guide for any portion of sightseeing in Prague, it would be for the Jewish neighborhood. Jana, besides guiding for Rick Steves tours, I know you do private local guiding. Is this an area that you're particularly passionate about as well? Would you recommend a local guide for this area?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yes, I would definitely highly recommend to hire a local person, because the Jewish history is so rich in Prague and so important. And luckily, the synagogues survived the 20th century and the World War II. And inside of the synagogues, we have now mostly exhibition halls with many unique objects on display. So it's definitely worth hiring a local expert and learning more about the rich Jewish history here in Prague. Yes.
And if you were going to hire somebody, how much time in advance would you contact them from the US? Like a couple weeks, a month? Because I know Prague sees a lot of tourists.
Yeah, definitely. You know, like once you book the flight, book your local guide as well, because especially during the busy summer season, you know, they could be booked out completely. So it's definitely planning your time a little bit ahead and making the reservations and booking your local guide in advance.
Okay, so the answer is as soon as you can.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This synagogue is now a museum, filled with historic and precious Judaica.
Even as Nazis were destroying Jewish communities in the region, Czech Jews were allowed to collect and archive their treasures here. But even the curators of this museum ultimately ended up in concentration camps.
Nearby, another synagogue is now a poignant memorial to the victims of the Nazis. Of the 120,000 Jews living here before the Nazis came, only 15,000 lived to see liberation in 1945. These walls are covered with the handwritten names of over 78,000 local Jews who were sent to concentration camps. A voice reading the names of the victims provides a moving soundtrack. Family names are in red, followed by first names, birthdays, and the last date that person was known to be alive. Despite the horrors of the Holocaust, the Jewish religion endured, and a small Jewish community survives in Prague to this day. The Art Nouveau facades gracing the Jewish quarter and streets all over the city seem to proclaim that life is precious and to be celebrated. Prague is perhaps the best Art Nouveau town in Europe.
Art Nouveau was an ethic of beauty. It celebrated creativity and the notion that art, design, fine living, it all flowed together.
In Paris, a struggling Czech immigrant named Alphonse Mucha created a theatrical poster with a uniquely sinuous touch. It was an overnight sensation. and Mucha had set a template for Art Nouveau. Willowy maidens with elegant gowns and flowing hair, immersed in a background of flowery pastel designs. Visions of the good life and pure beauty.
Jana, I wanted to stop here because we cut in that piece from the Art of Europe series, and Art Nouveau is a specialty of Prague's, and we want to talk about Alphonse Mucha. I know he got his fame and his start in Paris doing theater posters, so specifically for Sarah Bernhardt, but how much time did he spend in Paris before he went home to Prague, Jana?
Well, he spent actually almost 20 years in Paris. First, he came as a young 27 years old artist, really not really known artist. And then, as Rick was also mentioning in the video, he became famous almost overnight, really, when he designed the famous Gismond poster for Sarah Bernhardt. So le style Mucha, how the French called it, really. So he became famous in Paris and France, and then he returned back to Prague and spent the rest of his life in our country.
So if we wanted to see some of his art, because I guide in Paris, so I know there's not a lot of his art in Paris. Do we have to go to Prague? Can we see it there?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You can see his art over here in Prague. Well, previously already in the video, we when we were inside of the St. Vitus Cathedral, we saw the window which was designed by Alphonse Mucha. Another beautiful piece of his work we can see, for example, inside of the municipal house, that parallel of Art Nouveau I was mentioning, where you can also go for the different music concerts, because the mayor's hall was entirely designed by Alphonse Mucha. And definitely you have to visit Mucha's museum that we have in the center of Prague, when you can learn more about his life, his style, and see many of the original paintings, drawings, and posters as well. But I'm sure that many of you are interested, or maybe even seen his masterpiece, the Slav epic collection of 20 huge canvases. He really devoted his last 18 years to this Slav epic. At the moment, it's outside of Prague again, because it moved back to Moravský Krumlov, which is a town about 2.5 hours drive outside of Prague. And in the meantime, we are preparing a new exhibition hall. So I would say, if you love Alphonse Mucha, you can come anytime, because there is a lot of see from him. And then you can return back again after 2026, hopefully, when his famous Slav epic will be brought back to Prague and put on display. So a lot of Alphonse Mucha, anytime you come to Prague.
Okay, you said 2025?
2026, hopefully. Yeah.
Okay, so we don't want to wait. We'll come now and then we'll come back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. As I said, come anytime. Come now and then after 2026 again, for sure.
Okay.
While Prague is packed with art, history, and a wealth of unforgettable sights, the most lasting impression I take from visiting this magnificent city is the spirit of the Czech people. A youthful spirit that celebrates freedom and looks forward to a prosperous future. And that's enough of an excuse for one last party. The Prague Castle Orchestra is playing back at my favorite pub, and Lida and Hansa are saving me a seat.
Prague for its golden spires, its slinky art, this incredible beer, or the Czech people, it's a great place to visit. I'm Rick Steves. Until next time, keep on traveling. Na zdravé.
I'm going to try to be like Rick. Na zdraví. Did I say it something?
Na zdraví, Lisa, yes.
Na zdraví. What does he say? He said, just remember, nice driving. It works. Okay.
Well,
So,
interesting combination, really, interesting combination. Nice driving and our na zdraví.
Okay, so before we get to the questions and answers, which Julianne is thoughtfully texting me, we do have a word from our sponsor, and this is a new one for us because we have Marta, who is our customer experience sales expert. She's done a little video for us, and it's important because we are having our big bag sale, our spring bag sale on right now. From now until April 2nd, all bags and totes are 20% off. So Marta wants to get you ready for next week's show with Julianne, where she's going to talk about the Loire Valley with Veronique. So let's watch this commercial.
Hi everyone, my name is Marta and I work at Rick Steves Europe in the customer experience team, and today's item is the packable backpack. This handy bag actually folds up into its own zippered pouch, making it super easy to stash away until you need it. In here you can take everything you need for your day, your guidebook, maybe a picnic set, maybe even a baguette. And it is truly the perfect bag for castle hopping in the Loire Valley. Happy travels!
I just love that. Julianne filmed her doing that, and it just makes me happy. And 20% off makes me happy. So that goes on now through April 2nd. So let's see. What about these wonderful questions? I think we'll start off with an easy one from Kathy. Are there any river tours in Prague that go down the, is it Vltava?
Yeah. Vltava River, exactly. Yes, they are. They are always during the summer season. There are always many river tours, really. And you can enjoy the city from the boat. It's beautifully lit up after dark as well. And you can sail for an hour, or you can even have a nice, enjoyable dinner or a concert on the boat. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, my friend Bernie wants to know, is the proper name today Czechia or Czech Republic? And we're so interested in this, we talked about this morning. So I'll have you tell us what you think, Jana.
Well, Czechia is now also official name for our country, because, well, we are always using Czech Republic, but for some people it feels a little bit too long. So that's why this shorter name was created, and now it's also like an official name. So Czechia, but I still prefer Czech Republic.
And you said that was because there are other regions in the Czech Republic.
Yeah, there are other regions, because there is Bohemia, Moravia, and Silesia. So yes, Czech Republic would be really like a nice proper way of saying the name of the country.
Okay, Matt wants to know, what is the map behind you, Jana?
Well, that's Prague, of course. What could it be? This is actually an old map of Prague from 1920. This is just a reprint, not the original one, but this is how Prague looked in 1920. So I put it this little decoration, so Prague, of course.
And you picked those flowers yourself, I heard.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, we for the weekend we went to our weekend house. So I picked the flowers because finally the spring is coming. So at least I brought a little bit of it with me back home.
Does it get cold in Prague? What's the weather like in the winter?
Oh, yeah. We have a proper 4 seasons, let's say. So yes, we get some snow as well, even though the winters used to be harder and freezing, and even the Vltava River that we were just talking about used to freeze completely, which is not happening anymore. But some of the days could be really, really cold, and the same for the summer days. Some of the days could be really hot. So proper 4 seasons over here.
Okay, thank you. Leon wants to know, what is the best beer in Prague? Is there like a big variety of beers? Because I just said pivo every time.
Yeah, well, I would say, Leon, come and taste all the different beers, and then you can choose your favorites, because it's hard to say what is the best Czech beer, because we have so many different varieties, really, and breweries that make a different beers, really. So come to Prague, do your research, and then let me know.
So that was a very diplomatic answer, Jana. But I like it. So, but if you did what I did, which is just say pivo prosím in the pub, would they just serve you the beer that's associated with the brewery that they're aligned with? Well, is that right?
Yeah, it depends, because we, for example, Pilsner Urquell, the most popular, the most famous beer from the Czech Republic, they, for example, have there like a chain restaurants where they serve their beers, control the quality, and some of the other breweries, they do the same thing as well. So we have a Staropramen chain restaurants and many others. So, and sometimes they, like the beer masters, the bartenders, they would just pick the type of the beer that they like the most and serve it to the customers.
But when you say chain of restaurants, so when we in America think of chain restaurants, we might think of something that is a little bit homogenous and generic, but these are just, they're owned by the breweries.
Exactly. They are
they're still high
owned
quality.
by the brewery. Yeah. And they control the quality, really, how they serve the beer, really, and control the quality of the food as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Adam wants to know, what are some interesting festivals in Prague we should know about?
Well, when we were talking, for example, about the music, there are many different festivals going on throughout the year. So one of the most famous one is the Prague Spring music festival, which for years it always starts with the Vltava song that we were hearing in the video. We also have, because our other famous composer, not only Bedřich Smetana, but the other one that most of you know for sure is Antonín Dvořák. So we have a Dvořák music festival. And then definitely throughout the whole year, there are some other smaller festivals, but there is always something going on, something happening over here in Prague.
Jesse wants to know, Jana, do you go hear live music in Prague often? You take the kids?
Yes, I do. Even though, as you can imagine, our oldest, she's turning 18 in May. So sometimes she's refusing. But again, I think it's important to bring the children either to the theater for different performances, or for different opera and things like that, or for different exhibitions. So I always bring the kids. Just recently, 2 weeks ago, we went to the National Theater because we celebrated 50th anniversary of my parents-in-law. So
their wedding anniversary?
The wedding anniversary, exactly. So as a family celebration, we went to see the one of the Czech operas directly inside of the National Theater.
Oh,
so yes,
wow.
I bring the kids very
To
often.
them.
Thank you. I will pass it to them.
Let's see. Catherine would like to know, what is a good local specialty to bring home from Prague?
Well, actually, when I was talking about specialty to eat or to drink, because when I was mentioning the herbal tea that I am drinking, I mentioned that the linden tree is the Czech national tree. So that's also a very nice kind of like a souvenir, because you can buy the linden tea nicely packed in a small, nicely decorated little boxes. So that could be a little bit of the Czech country that you can bring back home, actually.
Oh, that's nice, and probably pretty lightweight too.
Oh, yes, yes.
Patricia wants to know, is Prague safe for solo female travelers?
Yeah, definitely. Like as in many other tourist cities, the biggest problem are the pickpockets. But we are experienced travelers, so we know how to avoid them and how not to ruin our days when we travel. But otherwise, Prague is safe, really, even for the solo female travelers. So yeah, I wouldn't worry.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. We did those. Mary Rose wants to know, do most people living in Prague speak English? And we addressed that a little bit. I think as a tourist, you won't have any problems.
Yeah,
but
yeah, definitely.
Ahoy, prosím, dziękuję.
Děkuji.
Dziękuję. I can't. Dziękuję.
Yes, great. Well done.
Well, I figure if I try, something will come
Yeah,
out. I mean, most people are nice and they'll give you grace. If they see you trying, they're more impressed than
yeah,
if you don't try.
definitely. Yeah. We already talked about it. And like you were saying, most of the people speak English. Like our kids learn English from many of them really from the first grade. Like my kids, they really started with English from the first grade. So most of the people really speak English over here.
Okay, good. William would like to know, do you have a favorite day trip from Prague, a good day trip?
Well, they are, not only Prague is beautiful, but there are many different beautiful parts of the Czech Republic. And one recommendation would be, for example, a small medieval town called Kutná Hora, which used to be a mining town for silver. And so it used to be pretty rich as well. And we have very beautiful medieval buildings, houses still till today in Kutná Hora. So that would be one recommendation from me for sure.
Okay, and that's easy to get to with public transportation?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, just time for a few more questions. Pam wants to know, what is special about the Czech people? What sort of defines the Czech national personality?
Well, I would say one thing is that sometimes on a first sight we might seem a little bit cold and not that open, but once you get to know us a little bit more, or if you try and start a conversation with a few of the Czech phrases or words, we are very, very open and very friendly, and we would do anything for you, really. So that's kind of like very typical for the Czechs.
Oh, that's lovely. Okay, and our last question tonight, I'm setting my phone aside because it's from me. Can you please tell us about your shirt? Because it looks unusual to me.
Oh, you noticed. Okay, well, I'm glad, because this is actually a shirt from one local artist. She designed the fabric. So I don't know if it's that clearly visible on the screen, but they are all the different steeples and buildings, most important sites of Prague, different churches and so on. So this is my Prague t-shirt that I'm wearing tonight.
What is the Prague nickname?
Well, City of Hundred Spires. We would call it like that because of all the spires of the churches. Yeah.
Okay, so that's you. It's just you can see that on your shirt. You could just count them. Oh, thank you so much, Jana, for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time to get up in the middle of the night and share your knowledge with us. And you're such a warm and friendly person. And I think you make everyone want to go to Prague because you just make it seem like a really wonderful, welcoming place.
Yeah, I love Prague, and I'm very happy that I woke up in the middle of the night to join you over here. And thank you very much for inviting me as well. It was really my big pleasure to share all the beauty and everything, and my passion and love for Prague with all of you. I know there are some familiar faces on the other side of the monitor, so I'm sending a very warm greetings to all of you that I met personally, and I hope that the rest of you will come to Prague in the future, so we will be able to meet as well, and you will see the beauty of our city. So thank you. Děkuji, Lisa.
Děkuji. I'm going to practice. Thank you so much. Let's put up our last slide as I remind people. Oops, I did the wrong thing. Hold on. There.
You know, for Prague, this is not a wrong one.
So I want to remind everybody that we're going to have Veronique on next week with Julianne to talk about castle hopping in the Loire Valley. And then we're going to take an Easter break for 2 weeks. And then we are back with a special episode called Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, all you need to know about transportation hacks. And we're going to have a couple of travel agents on, and a rail expert and a driving expert. And so that's going to be on April 24th. And I think it's up on the web now for you to join us to register. So we hope that you will come to that. And I will say one last time, good night, Jana. Thank you.
Ahoy, ahoy to everyone. Take care.